started once.
Morning.
Morning.
Little light today during, I'm sorry, we're recording? Okay, cool, so I make sure. No, we're a little light, we have some vacation time. Hopefully they're joining us in the morning coffee, listening in. Anybody question that? Okay, quick roll call. Sorry, as I refer to my notes. Okay, Mr. Fisher.
Present.
Mr. Stukas.
Present.
Mr. Sell. Naples. And me.
Mr. Naples and Ms. Purcell said they would
Yes,
not be able to
they
be.
told us they'd be missing the meeting.
Yep.
All right, moment of silence, please. Richard, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah, sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have an agenda in front of us for the evening, for the morning rather. Any questions, comments, issues of the agenda? Additions, corrections, following the state law that we now have in place that we adhere to. Steve gave a wonderful treatise last night on why it's important for people to do that. We need to vote on approving the agenda?
You should.
You should.
Yeah, that's your actions for today.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Thank you. Second. Any, we have commentary first before the, or after the motion, right?
So typically you get your motion on the board, on the table, and then you can have discussion,
That's right.
and then you go to your vote. And who was the second? Was it? Oh, okay.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay. Any public comment for agenda items only? Anybody online?
We're only doing public comment in person.
Okay, even better. Anybody here? All right. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes from the meeting of July 21st, 2021?
So moved.
Any discussion?
I looked at them a couple days ago. They were well done and I signed off on them. I think they were attached to the agenda.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Let's move on to the monthly reports for July.
Sure. So as you see later in the meeting, we're actually going to discuss changing the monthly reports up by suggestion of the committee, but for the purpose of this, I kept it the same until we had the conversation. So I just want to
say that again, Rich. I'm sorry. It zoned out completely.
I said the monthly reports are the same as last month. As you see later in the agenda, we're going to discuss changing the reports up because
Oh, the format.
yes, the formatting and things along those lines. So to date, our revenues are ahead 991,000, and our expenses are up 995,000 for approximately a $4,500 net difference. Of the increase in expenses, about 462,000 or 47% is due to the transfer of capital. If everybody remembers, it's going to be a yearly theme. The board put a freeze on capital expenditures last year, so that the expenses are going to be a little skewed in that category. So moving on to revenues, our revenues are up approximately 97, or real estate taxes are up approximately 97,000. There's still 127,000 left to collect, which is about $100,000 ahead of where we were last year. Last year at this time, we had 227,000 left to collect, and we only have 127,000 now. Moving on to other taxes, the category of other taxes. As you'll see, there is a there's a fairly large variance of last year. They're up about 552,000. The main cause of this is the transfer of Mainline Health, about 395,000, but that still leaves 150,000 ahead of where we were last year. I went back and after a short discussion with Steve yesterday, we're going to do some more analysis on it, but we were between $70,000 and $80,000 in revenue for real estate transfer taxes per month in 2020, and now we're in the $90,000 to $100,000 range. We're going to go back and look and see if this is more businesses, more residential, if the homes are just valued higher, which I'm sure all of us know here is per discussion before the meeting, may be the case. So I will report back on our findings on transfer tax next month. Overall, the other major categories that you see is the other financing sources. The large increase is due to the school resource officer reimbursement. We got a larger reimbursement in 2021 than we did in 2020. I'm actually having an open discussion with the school board about, not the school board, the school district about getting some more reimbursement for a board meeting a few months ago. In addition, that category is also a bit higher because we had some large insurance claims that we got in 2021 versus 2020. So with that being said, there were some expenses that had to happen with that. So there's an offsetting expense with the revenue. So that's just not an additional revenue. Last but not least, our public safety is up 161,000. We had a large permit for the Ellis Preserve come in at about 775,000 in May of 2021. This accounts for about 60% of all the permit revenue that we received this year. So it's one of those one-time big permits that we always talk about. So moving on to expenses, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on expenses because as you can see, there is a relatively low variance compared to 2020 where we're actually at. There's two major categories. The one is capital that I just touched about. There wasn't a transfer. And the second is our debt service. We took the two borrowings out in late 2020, and now we're actually paying on them. But other than that, all expenses are relatively in line with where we were last year. You'll see a slight increase in salaries and wages, but a lot of that has to do with the police contract and salary adjustments for staff. But overall, those were the main things that I wanted to touch on for the monthly reports.
I apologize for my walking around. I don't know if you hear it, but I'm hearing a tremendous hum in our system and I'm trying to get rid of it. That's what I've been.
That's not the air conditioner?
Huh?
I hear like air conditioner.
I hear a hum in our speakers and I'm trying to eliminate the hum in our speakers because I think it's going through to our thing. So I apologize if you feel like I'm being rude. I'm not trying to be.
I hear about 20 things in my head at any given moment.
Rich, so the real estate tax is up about 200, or it's up about 100,000 from last year. About 100,000 you said outstanding, so that's 200,000, right? Which makes up about a 4% increase over last year in real estate tax collection. So all that construction led to nearly a 4% real estate tax increase.
So
That's interesting to me because people always say, "Oh, the town must be awash in money from all the building," and it really is only 4%.
I mean, if you really think, and I don't mean to take Rich's thunder, but if you really think about like if it's a home, right? And if you take the average home, I think we're averaging somewhere around $500 to $700 per home.
yes,
in real estate taxes. And so, but let's push it up because some of these new homes are a little bit more expensive. Let's even say 1,000. It takes a lot of homes to generate a significant amount more increase. I mean, the businesses, yes, we may get more for those, But when you look at the home increases, and that's what we've had a lot of, if you just take Lister subdivision, for example, that whole build out is only $400,000 over the total build out. And, you know, it's a little bit higher than that because there's some homes that are more expensive than that. But if you just took an average, you said you're looking at between $400,000 and $500,000 in increase to the township, you quickly realize that that's been over 5 years, 6 years. It's not what some people are, you know, I hear everybody saying we should be just so much higher,
Yeah.
but it's just not. And you make a good point to that. It's a fairly small amount. And then when we talk about what we've been able to accomplish during that time, it's pretty amazing because we brought on, you know, 2 new officers that we didn't have before. We've added a public works person that we didn't have before because the needs are there for those kind of things. Well, I just in those 3 items, I've spent the entire amount that Lister brought in, you know, and more, you know, and so the board has done, I think, a really good job of trying to manage what we've done with increases to taxes that people have experienced over that time, and at the same time and manage what we've done, because we've added $300,000 to the road program that we didn't have. Actually, I think it's 350 this year.
350 this year.
350 this year. So we've added 50,000 a year for that whole period to get there. We're doing the same thing. We're doing 25,000 a year now for the public works vehicle replacement. We've got the police car replacement in the budget that we didn't have before. And you just do those things, and it doesn't take long to chew up the little bit of extra that we've gotten in that process.
Well, I think the other thing too is that the public perception is all the dollars, but we know the majority of the money doesn't come here. It goes to the school district.
Right.
And everybody said, oh my God, you know, 1% is huge. It's going to belong to goes there. You know, and I know that because I was on the side of that largesse for a long time.
Yeah.
But to follow up on that point, one concern I have, and you know, if you look at our budgets and you look at the good guy we just got with mainline health transfer, or you look at the permit fee from Ellis Preserve, those are big numbers in a $10 million revenue stream.
They are.
Right. So my concern is you have operating cash and one-time fees that will maybe be replicated eventually, maybe in the case of the building being sold, but certainly not permit revenue. How do you plan? I mean, how do you plan knowing that, you know, your revenue stream to a degree is dependable, right? But you can't depend on transfer taxes.
So Rich and I, we look at these trends all the time, you know, and we're saying, here's where we are. One of the things that we did, I asked Rich, I think your first year here, second year here, I asked him to go back and I said, go back as far as we can with the books that we had.
Yeah.
And part of the challenge was they were done differently back then, but I said, go back, because we created a new chart of accounts since we've been here, and we've done a lot of things and moved in a direction. So we have a more of a long-term consistency about how we were doing things, but we went back and we looked over the years before and we said, what was the monies that we were bringing in real estate tax transfer? What were the monies we were bringing in permit fees? And we know those numbers, and we spend a lot of time trying to say, how do we manage to that number? Because that's going to be the realistic number, you know, in probably another 2 or 3 years. And so, and that's been the challenge, you know, because some people say, well, you have all this money and we have a little bit of extra money right now. Yes, but when we came, there was not a ton of extra funding on our side. I mean, the township made some pretty tough decisions the few years before I came. They were really struggling with some cash flow issues. And so we've benefited from this time, but at the same time, we've used that to build a 25% fund balance that we hold in place.
Yeah, so you're not using it for operating costs as much as you are for either capital or things that can replenish stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is when people got in trouble with that 2008 stimulus.
Exactly.
Because they put it in the operating costs and it eventually dried up.
And I'll be honest with you, we're talking to some of our fellow townships respectively, you know, finance people and managers, and a lot of them have talked about the stimulus that we've received. We have about 1.5 million roughly that we're receiving from not the CARES Act.
American Relief,
Yeah, the American.
some
Relief
big
Act.
long acronym.
And so as we're receiving those dollars, you know, we've talked about it and said, you know, some municipalities are using that to make up losses from 2020.
Yeah.
And those kind of things. And we said, that's not the recommendation we're going to make to the board. We haven't finalized how we're going to recommend that, but we'll be here shortly. And, you know, we see that as, you know, one-time dollars, and it should be spent on a one-time expense. Should be the way we handle that.
Good.
Not so much worried about what we lost just during COVID, but how we can move the township forward. And fortunately enough, between our board took really smart actions over the last several years in building, you know, we had a 25% fund balance when we started 2020. We had dollars in our capital plan, in our capital budget that, you know, we have $1 million that we keep there at all times, that if something goes wrong, like 2020, we're prepared. And when most municipalities were really talking about having to do layoffs and talking about how they were, what their income was going to be, we had 3 months of being able to sit back and watch and see what was going on, to be able to make those decisions without making a panic decision. We ended up not laying people off. And I give the credit to the board for being really smart in helping us to set the policies in place so that we were able to weather that storm. The good news also, you know, quite frankly, we were not a township that had an EIT, and the townships that had an earned income tax got hit tremendously
We talked about that last night.
because they were townships that were impacted directly in that piece of it. And so we were very fortunate.
There were some panicked emails being sent out. How's everybody handling this? I'm like, oh.
And we also didn't have a business privilege tax. Some days we wish we had a business privilege tax. Talked to Upper Marion last year, and they would have said that was a horrible thing.
And especially when you get a piece of the action, right?
Well, you know, how long was the mall closed?
Yep.
You know, King of Prussia Mall, that was a huge hit for Upper Marion because they don't have real estate taxes. I'm not even sure they have earned income tax. I don't think so.
That was one of the panicked emails came from them.
You know, and so we were very fortunate. We have a real estate tax.
So you have that boring revenue reliability.
It was very reliable. So I feel like we've done the right things over the years before we got here, and even since we've been here to help build where we are today.
More real estate. The new AmeriHealth building, has that been fully assessed yet? And have
This
so that's good from the point of view that will be more than $1 million house.
Oh, it'll definitely be more than $1 million house. Rich and I have been running the numbers. We think it's going to be upwards of 30,000, but you know, maybe more than that. We just don't. It's hard to know where that assessment comes in. We kind of pegged it between Mainline Health and SAP and said it should be somewhere in that.
Second question, the tax assessment appeals. Any more happening with that? Good or bad?
I believe I spoke about it in this meeting. A lot of the businesses paid in protest this year, but the appeals have seemed to taper off. I believe there's another level of appeal that's happening now, but I'm not getting wind of it because it's not at the county level. I believe it's at the state level now, so I'm not getting notified of them. But your average Joe those appeals have tapered off recently.
Is there a ratio of paid in protest to appeals? In other words, does some people just not go forward with the appeal and just pay in protest and then eventually just relent on that?
I do not know that answer, but I can.
Okay.
I can look it up.
I'm not testing. I'm just curious, but some people say, screw it, I'll just pay it.
I guess the question is, do they pay it in appeal? I mean, some people I think pay an appeal almost every year.
Yes.
Oh, really? Just doesn't
Yeah,
matter. It's like some companies just protest because that's
Yeah.
just what they do.
It's their,
But I
it seems
don't
like it's
know
their
that,
policy.
I don't know whether there's a hearing every year.
I know that we're still holding some for some businesses from 2016 that still haven't been resolved yet. I regularly check with the school district because why not join forces with them?
Yeah.
And they're still holding it as well. So
Okay,
just waiting to hear.
got it. Thank you.
So if there's no other questions about the monthly reports, that is everything I wanted to touch on for this month.
Gotta do 8.1.
Sorry, my mistake. Let's just read one more thing on the on the new business. May I have a motion, please, to recommend that the July monthly report be presented to the Board of Supervisors?
We'll move. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passes. Rich, you want to lead a discussion about the monthly reporting format?
Yeah, sure. So unfortunately, I was unable to attend last month, but I did watch the recording and there was some discussion about changing possibly the formatting, some information that was on the reports. So we wanted to open the discussion up to the board and everybody in the room about what changes they would like to see on the reports, what's working, what's not working, and I can have a draft drawn up for next month's meeting and we can approve the official format. But at this time, I just kind of wanted to open it up for discussion about your thoughts and comments because it seemed that it kind of got, I guess, tabled last month because of the new Sunshine Act. It wasn't directly on the agenda, so the discussion couldn't really happen.
Isn't the question really whether the Board of Supervisors wants a new format?
Well, what we were going to do, well, my goal was to have the discussion in this, draw up a draft, and then have this board recommend the new format to the Board of Supervisors.
And that is how it should happen.
Okay.
That's
We don't
the
want their
function of the
input at
committee.
all and how, what they like and don't like, otherwise you'll be going back and forth.
Well, I think that somebody, I can't remember the exact conversation last time, but I do remember that someone from this group recommended that we change some of the column locations so that they lined up easier. And so, you know, I think that in, you know, those kind of things, I think it's easy for this group to just say, yes, we should recommend this because we think this is a better practice. If you're totally changing it, then you might want to have a different kind of discussion. But if you think there's a better practice that would help make it more readable, I think the board, I don't want to speak for the board, but Tina's here, but I would think that they would be open to having it so that the average resident, because you know, the average resident is the one that we want to make sure can read these reports. And so if we set it up so it works for them, that's what the best goal is.
And to Stephen's point, I think this committee last meeting, there was a suggestion of the, I think it was year to date
Yeah.
or something like that. And I'm sure it's in the notes.
Yeah, I
From
think
the
that's what I
meeting.
brought up, because
Yeah.
my view of the way I always looked at a business, I know the way you guys are looking at it sequentially, and that makes sense. But, and I know you've also made the point that, hey, the variance isn't that great, looking at it on a month over year basis. That's just a different view that I've seen historically. You guys are in this business. I'm looking at it from an outside perspective. So
Sure.
you know what works best for how you manage the business. I'm looking at it from most businesses operate on a year-over-year basis versus against budget. Oh, but in your case, budget's most important because that's what you're tied to.
Yeah, and for us, the budget is the authority to spend.
Mhm.
You know, unlike, you know, when you're in a business, you hopefully can make decisions pretty quickly. And, you actually, I always say, it's kind of like if you're in a business and you're looking and you're saying that blue shirts are selling better than red shirts, you obviously go buy more blue shirts to sell than you would red shirts, right? You make that on the fly and you do that. We set the budget, and as a staff, we can't spend outside of the budget until the board changes it. Where, in a business, a lot of times you can make that decision. You don't have to wait the board of directors makes that decision, right? And fortunately for us, that gives us a lot of cover, that we say it's not in the budget, we're not doing it. And so it keeps us very, there's a lot of accountability to the public,
It's my favorite line.
the way it is.
No, and you're certainly not wrong with that. And I understand too. And also, no, the other problem is that the reliability of your revenue, you can't control. Certain things you can. You have deadlines and things have to be, but good guy revenue things that happen, they're unreliable sources. You like to forecast them based on things, but again, you just don't know.
Right.
Like when I remember when the mainline medical building sold across the street for a big number. That was a really good guy.
Yeah.
That you guys, unless you guys compelled the sale, which I know you have a lot of power, but
Yeah, a ton of power, particularly over a company that held it down in Maryland, right?
Well, and to Stephen's point, that's every time that they come to us, we ask if us being the Board of Supervisors, we always ask if that is a line item in the budget, or if it's covered in the budget. So, but to Jim's point, it does make it a little easier to see year over year, as opposed to the way the format is. So as a Board of Supervisor, and Leonard and I, because we see these reports all the time, however the committee wants to present it, because that's what happens with the committees. They dictate what the reports are, because it's your working document. But we get the information, and that helps. And, and Rich and Stephen are there to explain it if we've got some questions. So however the committee would like to see it.
but I think that was the genesis of the.
Yeah, I think the key is we want to make sure that when the average resident in the township picks up the document, that they have an understanding of what's going on. And if it's not doing that, then we should change the report, because this report is the particular, we have the detail back here, and, people can see the detail, and the board, I hope, looks at the detail and understands where we are. This is what the average person wants to pick up and look at quickly and go, oh, that's where the township is. We're doing okay, or we're not doing okay, or, and then looks down at the notes and understands why it's where it is. But most people, other than those of us that are like really into numbers, when you look at this sheet, you just go, huh? It's like, wow, there's a lot of numbers there. What does that mean? For some of us, that's real exciting.
What's
but for
scary is
most-
that when somebody pulls something out of there that's factual, I say, holy crap, how'd you see that?
Yeah. But so this really, we want to make sure is a great public facing document. So if there's a way to make it better, that's what I would hope that we would end up with as we go forward.
So I think I was responsible for this line of discussion last week.
I didn't want to point fingers.
Yeah. And I think just a quick suggestion on the monthly reports is to have your first column be 2021 year to date, and then either 2020 year to date or 2021 year to date budget, if you have a year to date budget, and we can talk about whether to budget on a monthly basis or an annual basis. But if you don't have it right now, then I would just go 2020 year to date. And then the next, and maybe a variance column, then 2021 budget, and compare that to 2020 actual versus 2020 budget.
I think that combined with the notes.
Yeah.
Because the notes are real, that's what people are going to understand. And I think that's really the key. And what Rich has been doing it. Why does it change?
Yeah.
And it's a one-time money is really important.
But it goes back to to an annual report. You read the notes from management. You can see the data, you can see the earnings. But you go read the notes from management as to the why.
Yeah.
And I think you guys do a very good job as to the why. You point out, you know, the one-time exceptions, which again, for this kind of budget, it's the exceptions that drive the conversations. Now, the boring collection of real estate taxes is the core part of what you do,
Boring?
right? It's not boring, but it's banal, right? It's very basic, very straightforward, but it's boring. But the exceptional stuff is what gets people excited and interested in seeing what's going on, especially when it's $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. So you need to collect basic fees and permits and taxes, but the exceptional things that drive things, that's what you see in the notes. Because normally, unless something absurd happens, you don't see a lot of variance in the basic fundamental things of what you do, the boring things.
And then on the budget worksheet, I would, if I were king for a day, I would just switch the current year actual and the current year budget so that the first column is current year actual. So the numbers that change every month are the first number that you see rather than the budget, which stays the same every month.
I was just gonna ask you to put them back up for a second. Financials, just. I didn't bring my laptop, so I can't look at them. Sorry. I'm pointing at you, but you're not controlling it. And then the other question was, Joe Ordinary gets the financial statements how? Because I could not print these out for the meeting today.
You could not.
So I just didn't know if you publish it like with the supervisors meeting and the people could print them
Well,
out. or
it's
bring them, or-
it's attached to the supervisors meeting with our monthly financial report. It should have been able to be printed out.
I could get it on my laptop, but I didn't think to bring my laptop because normally you.
Yeah, but you should have been able to print it out from there. And then it's also put on the website so that it's available on the website for everyone. We are I'm looking at the possibility of what we might do. We're changing our newsletter up a little bit, so it may be in the newsletter. I don't know that we would take 3 pages of the newsletter every time it goes out, but maybe we would do something, you know, once a quarter, and then do a, you know, like a quarterly report, and create something that would be maybe like a 1-page that people could see what's going on that way. But right now, the 2 places, I mean, it should be available to pull up. When you pull up the agenda for this meeting, you should be able
Pulled
to
it up,
pull
but
it
I
up.
couldn't print. It could be my internal.
Okay, we're going to check that to make sure that you can print.
You wanted a password, and when I tried to register, put a password in, it wouldn't let me.
No, I have the same problem. Go down, there's 2, is the what, in-house? Yeah,
And
there's,
then there's a second.
Oh,
set of
oh,
links.
oh,
oh,
Use the
I know.
second set of
so
links.
we'll make sure everybody has log on to be able to get in.
Okay,
I'll work with that.
You're talking about iCompass, correct?
Right,
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now I know what the problem is now. I know what the problem is now. Okay,
Okay.
we can fix that.
and do you get comments from the public about?
You know, to
readability?
be honest, we get very few comments related to finance. Other
Yeah.
than the comment that you all hear is, you know, with all the building, the township should be just rolling in the dough. And I mean, that's the one comment that I hear kind of consistently. And, you know, the little dance that we just did a few minutes ago was the same thing I go through a lot of times with folks and try to explain it. But, you know, to be honest with you, finance is not an area that we hear a lot about. And that, I hope that's because people trust what we're doing. My guess is it's really not all that. But it's, you know, it's they're the top concerns that we hear about, to be honest with you, is stormwater, probably the biggest one. I don't even know if there's, I mean, seems like lately that's been the biggest one.
Water and roads.
And roads, yeah. Yeah, those are the 2.
And when
you
it
know,
snows.
yeah.
What's
Well,
that, winter storms?
Yeah.
Yeah, and your inability to shovel the snow yourself.
I like when they call the finance department about shuffling the roads. Pass the message along, but it's not. I don't know.
So, but we are looking at, I want people to be informed. Rich and I are talking about, right now, we're doing a full audit report every year. We eventually want to do a comprehensive financial report that we would do. But we're looking at doing a public-facing report, which typically you do after you do your comprehensive one. But we're looking at doing a public-facing report sooner, just to start getting something out on an annual basis. And it may be something that eventually, if we can get it down to like a couple-page document, that we actually do it as a mail out, that every home gets it, just so that they understand what it is that we're doing. I feel like the township and the board have done a great job with the finances, and we ought to be showing that with what it is. And people ought to be able to see it, ask us questions, and I just get excited when I see how healthy we are financially, and it makes me feel good about knowing that the future is strong for the township. And so hopefully we manage that well. It's easy to be honest with you, it's easy to manage it in times like this when you're having lots of income coming in. The key is being prepared for when that stops. And so we're working really hard to make sure that the board and the township is ready for that when that happens.
Well, and Stephen and Rich have done a great job with these budget workshops that they've set up. One good thing I think that's come out of COVID, and even before COVID, was this, the broadcasting of these meetings. So hopefully people will be more inclined now to be involved with the township. And Stephen and Rich have done, and the town and the rest of the staff have done such a tremendous job. He gives us credit, but they've done a great job trying to communicate this information, and just the way that they have understood from the very beginning. Stephen understood that this money cannot continue. So he's not used that, to Jim's point, for operations. He's always had us have forced savings, which has afforded us to be in a better position and to try to do these capital improvements like the stormwater management. So we appreciate you giving us credit.
You're the ones that say yes or no.
Yeah.
So.
Where does this take us with our discussion of this?
I guess the question is, I know John gave us some suggestions. Is the rest of the group in agreement? And if so, then probably we'll go back and put it together, let you look at it, make sure it feels right. And if it does, then we'll make it as an action item for next month when we meet.
That makes sense to me.
Does that work?
And one other quick discussion, which you brought up last month, Jim, is whether it's worth the time and effort to budget on a monthly basis versus an annual basis and track it monthly. I know that it is a lot more work because you have to figure out when are the property taxes coming in, when are the transfer taxes coming in. So does it get you any more information on a monthly basis where, Mainline Health comes in and it's, $500,000 more, you can see that whether or not you budget it annually or monthly.
Yeah.
And that, that's where it comes down to my basic thing. It's a view of me and maybe some others here against how you guys run the business.
Sure.
So I want to support whatever helps you most. I can retrain my eyes pretty easily, but it's just a different look at things. If it's something you think benefits you and will benefit the board to help them manage the affairs of the town better, great. Again, I'm not looking to create work for anybody. I'm not trying to
Is
do
it
that.
worth the effort?
Yeah, to help work the clock, right?
Do you get enough out of it?
Yeah.
And again, part of your purpose is, will not we, if it's getting into the residents, will it mean any more to them?
Sure.
And the number of things.
I'll give you the fundamental behind it, right? So you track year-to-date progress against plan.
Sure.
Yes.
But that really doesn't matter until, the 11th month of the year. because you're gonna have a lot of exceptional things. You're gonna be collecting things sooner. So that year-to-date variance is immaterial, because it's over the course of the entire year. Like, it doesn't, I don't think that aids in anybody's decision.
Right, that was my
Yeah.
thought, is that we're sitting here now, and what Rich said about tax collection year to date, we understood when he compared it to last year. And so comparing it to what he thought in last October was going to be in by this time probably doesn't give us any more information.
Why don't we do this? And then we can have a discussion at the next meeting as well. Rich and I will spend some time, and Rich will really spend the time. So let me be honest.
Well, it's
like
all
that
about
team. I'll give the direction and he'll have to go do it. But no, but why don't we let him and I talk? And I think I have an idea that I think I want to talk to him about the possibility of being able to go back and do some trending that we've had over the last 5 to 8 years, because we've been on this system now 7 years.
2017 for the township.
Okay, so we have
2016.
We have 2017, 2016 till now, and so not quite that long, but so.
That's still decent.
But it's enough of an experience that if we can do some percentage basis versus trying to trigger it at exact dollar. And let me see if we can do that to make it easy. And if we can do that based on when we think we collect what percentage each month, and then we'll try to do something with that and see if we can do it. I know the system allows for monthly budgeting. We've not been doing it that way. But we'll take a look and see what it takes to convert it. And if we can do it, if we can make the system do the conversion, then I would say it makes sense. If we're going to have to do all of it manually, I would think it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, one of the problems is when you look at real estate taxes, the majority of it comes in March. So when you ask the system to trend it, it looks like you're going to have a phenomenal year, but you know that that's just not the case. A lot of it's front loaded, alarm registrations, business registrations, all those things. So if you start doing some trend analysis in January, February, March, it looks like you're going to have a stellar year. But so like Steve said, we can go back and we can look at it from month to month and see what we can come up with and see what we can get out.
I have some ideas. I just want to see if the system will do what I want it to do. And usually it's the limitation of the system. My brain goes in all kinds of areas, but let me see if we can do something.
Your brain and the system don't operate on the same.
I often go into Rich and say, I'd like to see this. And he says, the system doesn't do that. And I've been in the system for years. It's the same system I had in Phoenixville. And I just keep hoping they make it better. But let me take a look. Rich and we'll give you an honest evaluation of what we think we can do.
That's perfect.
And then based on that, we'll go from there.
My concern is the month to month isn't gonna help you with anything, and it's gonna confuse Joe Public. I mean, going all the way back to your original point. I mean, the idea here is to make it simple for people to know. I mean, us, data nerds, want to know the month to month,
Right.
but I don't think Joe Public wants it. They just kind of want to know, how's the town doing this year versus last year?
Yeah. And I think the challenge, you end up with two challenges, right? The ultimate really is a comparison in some ways to budget, in that, because that's what we set as our spending for the year. And that's where we are. Because, for example, just like when Richard's talked about this, we have several anomalies that happened last year that, may never happen again. I don't know that we would be in a situation we would make decisions to stop all capital expenditures, in March of a year. It was before we ever made the first capital expenditure, we kind of cut everything out. But one of the things that I'm always concerned about when you compare year over year, and I do understand why we do it, is like last year we had a $4 or $5 million road program, and this year we're probably going to spend $200,000. And so when somebody looks at that, they might say, well, why didn't you do that? Well, because we set it up purposely to do a $5 million road program that year. We went out for a borrowing, we did all of those things. And we knew in 2021, we were not going to do much of a road program. We were going to mostly do repairs, some line striping, and, we're saving the money up to be able to do that again. And, that's kind of the pattern that we've done for the last several years, is every about 2 or 3 years or so, we do this major program and we take care of a lot of roads at once, because we get the best price versus doing 600,000 this year, 600,000 next year, 600,000 the year after. You pay a lot more per road to get it done than when I say I'm going in and doing this whole neighborhood, and the asphalt guys all, start, drooling and getting all excited because, because, this is a big project, and you get the bigger folks to bid in on it, and they're much more efficient. And a lot of times they do a lot better job. And so, we found that to be the case, but not everybody in the public totally understands why you're not doing just a program every year. And that's the reason it makes really good sense financially, and it makes really good sense for the quality, but that's the challenge.
That makes sense.
But we'll look at it. We'll try to come up with a way to project at least the things that are consistent, and see if we can give something that makes sense. And, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I have a lot of these graphs already built. We have a program called Advantage, and I love the revenue charts. It's nice symmetrical curve from year to year, but expenses are up, down, up, down. So I feel like the revenues maybe a little bit easier than taking out our one time.
You can make an argument that revenues are the ones that are most interesting for us to view. Right, because again, I don't think expenses will be that exceptional other than things you know about. This is not a bad guy business for expenses. A lot of times it's just, you operate, and again, it's a very steady operating business. The revenues are where things are going to, really what I'm concerned about is, you have a small budget. And when you have, $500,000 line items that pop in that help support that budget, what worries me in the long run is that people who may not be as informed sit there and say, well, why don't you get that every year? Well, these properties don't sell every year.
Right.
It's those kind of conversations.
Sure. And we have those conversations often, and I'm sure the board does too.
And fortunately, you have a board of supervisors, not including one, who understand this stuff. But you get my point. The board gets it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there have been previous boards who have not.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
He listens to the recordings at night to put him to sleep. All right, do we need to do anything else on this new business?
I don't think so. I think we just
There's
wanted
no
to have a
motion to carry on
discussion.
it? No.
I think we have direction from you of what you want. We'll put it together,
Yeah.
and we'll come back.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's jump into old business. We want to discuss and approve the draft action plan for capital.
Sure. Lisa, once again, did a wonderful job typing up the summary of our meeting. In July, Ed, Lisa, Steve, and myself all met, and we went over where we're at with our capital budget task force. Love
Get hats?
Yeah, I love the name of it. So we made some progress over, I guess, the last time we reported. George Sheraton, myself went back, we tracked all the traffic signals and all their components throughout the township. We have 23. We have 20,
I think it's 22, and I think that's right.
yeah.
More than 20, less than 25.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we've tracked all the components, the controller boxes, the arms, the actual fixtures on them. At this point, George and I are going back and we're trying to determine the age of them so we can put a useful life on the components of them. And then we should have a rough plan of how much we should start budgeting each year for the capital replacement. The majority of our time, we spoke about stormwater, and at the last Board of Supervisors meeting,
Yes.
the board approved an expenditure of about 28,000. I don't remember the exact one.
28,800.
28,800 for Stantec, the township engineer, to actually go back and do a comprehensive study of all the stormwater infrastructure that we have within the township. I believe the overall purpose of that is to find out what stormwater we have and what shape it's in, to put it very simplistic. Once we get those reports back, we're gonna really take a dive into how much money it's going to take to, one, replace and repair the stormwater that we currently have, and two, to upgrade it so we don't run into some of the problems that the township's currently having with stormwater. The committee is going to meet, this says September 1st, but I was actually informed last week that I need to go to court on a municipal authority matter on September 1st. So we're moving the next meeting to September 10th. I confirmed that with Lisa and Ed yesterday on your schedule.
Okay.
So the Board of Supervisors already approved the Stantec engineer. There's no reason for us to recommend that. I mean, we don't.
Well, I wanted to get their approval of it, just to make sure they were in agreement for that amount, so we could do the recommendation. It's actually already been done.
So
and
scratch, we
we can
can
scrap that recommendation off. It's,
I mean, I have
I just, so you know, the board is actually wanting us to move a little bit more quickly than what the task force was aiming for.
yeah.
So we're actually going to do this study this year, and they're hoping that we build the stormwater capital improvement piece, the existing stormwater capital improvement piece, into the 2022 budget. And so the Stantec's been given a short window to get it done. And
Yes,
so,
October, I think.
huh?
I think we
October,
wanted
yeah.
them to finish this
So
report by October.
we as staff will then have to take that information with Stantec and try to come up with a recommendation of what we should have in the budget for 2022 to make sure we take care of existing. And so we're trying to figure all that out and be prepared to do that. I know that Rich and I have already talked, our recommendation of that 1.5 that we're getting from the federal government would be that we would use it to address stormwater, because it's the big complaint and it's a legitimate expense.
And it's a perfect fit for that program.
It's a
Yes.
perfect fit for that program. And so we would suggest using that 1.5, not on existing, but using it on new is what I think we're going to recommend. And so we're trying to come up with a plan of how we can do that, but it can then treat existing to try to address those. That should just become a part of our everyday tax dollars and do that.
Can you put that thing back up, the stormwater? I mean, we're not going to then vote on this because there's nothing to vote on.
I don't think there's any action at this point.
Okay, good, because there was issues that I had with the way this was written. It's like their grammar's off and sentences are incomplete. So I didn't get to see it before it got put to the agenda. So I would have made changes to it.
Well, and you can do that now. That's what the purpose of this is. This is a report out of the subcommittee.
Oh,
If
okay.
you want to make changes to this is actually the time to do it. And so.
Well, I could just send Lisa my.
Yeah, just send Lisa the comments and
Oh, okay.
we'll make that changes. And I mean, I agree with you. It doesn't make sense to put on here to make the recommendation. I wanted to find out whether the board would approve that amount or not. And so they just went ahead and acted on it.
Yeah,
last week.
like item 1 up there, stormwater management according to the EPA. That's an incomplete sentence. I don't know what I didn't even know what that meant. Stormwater management according to the EPA. There's no verb in that sentence.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, we'll look. Yeah,
And then on number 2, storm patterns have become more severe between the time the stormwater systems are developed and now, causing immediate needs. That causing word, I mean, for me, that's problematic. And I don't know why we need to be looking backwards. We have immediate needs. If you want causes, I mean, Leonard posted it pretty correctly on his Facebook thing, which is, it's a combination of things. It's the rain, it's the impervious surface, and every time you cut down a tree, that's 50 gallons a day, a big tree, that's not getting sucked up by the ground. So it would, I'm not a politician. I don't care about stuff. I do care about facts, direct facts. And if we're going to list all the causes, we should do that and not attribute one of them to like the environment, which is not something caused by us. In other words, we should say that people should know stormwater management is necessary now because of many things put together. And like I said, that's cutting down trees, the existing impervious surfaces, that's of everybody's homes together, including the new and the old building, everything put together causes this, not simply just that we have stronger microbursts, because if it was just that, if we were still a very rural community and we just had more microbursts, we wouldn't be having this discussion at all, because the ground could hold it, it'd be absorbed and dropped in the stream. So I'll send that comment to Lisa if we feel, I was hoping this committee wouldn't get into stuff like that, but I mean, there's simply a need for stormwater management, period.
Sure.
If we want to get into a huge debate over the reasons of it, then people get all agitated, and you might as well put them all. That's my view of it.
Okay, I think that's a fair statement there. And your comment on number one is also, we'll look at that.
And our dams are not part of stormwater management,
Well,
or are they?
inadvertently, they've become part of it. I don't know that it was necessarily the intent originally when they were put in, because they are controlling some level of flow, depending on what level the dam is at. But in our case, both the dams that we have, or all three of the dams that we have, I should say, all need repairs. And, as part of addressing stormwater, we probably need to look at how we're going to handle those going forward.
Do we own the dams? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, no, I was just gonna say, with Greer Park though, that pond that was caused by that is a result of the dam and Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong, it's got so much sediment that it doesn't control any water.
Right.
So when it comes down, it maybe slows it down a bit, but that's why we're doing Greer Park again, to kind of help control, that waterway that comes through. So this way it disperses into that wetland,
Yeah.
which is still there.
Yeah,
Even before that. And then with the dam at Green Country, that it's the same thing now. You've got this wetland. And we did not own the Green Country Dam.
We own one at Greer and we own two at Drexel Lodge. Because I think that's where you were going to ask, do we own the dams?
Yeah.
Yeah, we own the one at Greer Park and we own the two at Drexel Lodge. And the great news for us is that if they fail, it's a low impact. It floods ground, it doesn't flood somebody's house. And so that's always the
Yeah.
good news. Those are the things that we look at all the time. So we have money, we have $1 million set aside in our capital budget that we set aside, I think back in 2016 or
Yeah, that was a while
17
ago, yeah.
for this purpose, that when we got to that, we would have some capital dollars to invest in that and make sure we were ready to go. And we do have some requirements from DEP to address those, but we're working through those.
So then we're going to be moving to phase 2, right? Quickly, evaluation of what may need to be added to the existing stormwater management system. So that's going to be for next year's budget, or I mean, is this?
Yeah, I think that we're gonna, I think if we're wise and we think about it, we're probably going to try to do a piece of phase 2, potentially at least start the design and getting all the permits needed and all of those kind of things in 2022, because we have a 4-year window to spend the money. Four. So we have a 4-year window to spend the money. So the 1.5 million from the federal government, that was
Relief.
the relief money. So because we have a 4-year window, I don't want to wait until we got the first payment this year, we get the second payment next year. I think we need to be budgeting and recommending that we do that part of the project, of at least getting the design done. And so that when we get the second half of that money, we're ready to put shovels in the ground and do the project that we need to do. The question is, where do we do that in the township? Because we know as staff there's probably 10 or 15 locations that need to be addressed. And, you know, which one gets the highest priority? And so that's something that the board has to make a decision on. And that's not a great position to be in, because we get to do one project right now because we have some dollars. But to be truthfully honest, what we're hoping is using this time is to build a plan so that we can do all the projects across town. And, you know, when we talk about numbers, that's going to be the number that we're all going to look at each other and go, holy cow.
Yep.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
It's tens of millions, you know, to be honest with you. You know, it was 33 million to put in the sewer system that we just put in. Sewer system pipes are this big, stormwater pipes are this big, you know, and so it's, you know, it's just a much bigger, and stormwater pipes have to be gravity. You know, you don't pump stormwater up, you know, so there's some challenges that come in with that.
Yeah, and we've been looking as a board, Stantec and the staff have put together some areas of concern that have been, and we've got Glendale, I think, was one of them that it was a low flow or low, I forget the term, but we got a grant money to do that work. And I think that one of the things in here, Alex, that says, you know, about the conditions is up near where Larry's house was on Lewis Road. It's problematic in that development because when that development was built, there was not stormwater management. There are not many inlets. So that's what we're looking at. So this is a thing in progress, but this helps us to have you as the committee and the subcommittee look at these as well to kind of help guide where, you know, we're all in this together and everyone's in this community. And it's not to say, well, they said it was a good place to start, not to kick it down, but it's a conversation to have because people are impacted differently and they see things differently. So that's why I think we've kind of asked you guys to look at this as well and for budgeting purposes.
Yep.
But yeah, the staff has been great trying to find, staff and Stantec have been great trying to find us grant money for these projects.
I think it's great. I mean, that we're on top of that issue, regardless of its causes. It's a need.
Yes.
You know, I live on a street called Dunminning, which does not have stormwater management. The one street over, the last one in the Township Mason's Way, does.
It's a newer street.
Yeah.
Yep.
And on Dunminning, where I live on that big property. It has Darby Creek that goes through it, and I have two ponds down on Paper Mill Road, because my property extends from Dunminning down to Paper Mill Road. And because of the storm water issues and the amount of rain and stuff and some tree cutting up at certain golf club, water comes down on the paper mill side, you know, and it gets funneled through a township culvert under Paper Mill and into my ponds and then into Darby Creek. And so I see every day sort of the effects of what tree cutting does. What, you know, if I cut down all the trees on my property, I have maybe 1,000 trees. If I cut all those down, yeah, there would be flooding all down Darby Creek, you know, thanks to me.
Yeah.
So we've addressed it, you know, these issues with these tree ordinances, with the stormwater ordinances. I think it's so important to the future of the township. Some things we can't control, you know. Darby Creek used to, when I moved here 11 years ago, you know, in the summertime when we had no rain like this, it would be up to my ankle. You know, now when there's no rain, it's up to my knee. That meaning there's stuff coming from upstream already, which makes Darby Creek already higher than it would have been. So even if you have the same amount of rain, you get some flooding downstream. And I'm glad that our township is proactive in that, even if others aren't. You know, we're doing our part. It's
What
important.
Tina said, after there was some flooding in the neighborhood, and Stantec put the drawings, I saw them on the, so I drove the neighborhood, and you never think about it, but look for a stormwater drain. And you go to an intersection, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 if you're lucky. And in that neighborhood, it goes like this, they all come in.
Yes.
And you think, wait a minute, you know, you go the main way, there's probably 5, 6 drains down that road.
Sure.
Because it's a new road. in that St. Albans neighborhood, you know, for the whole neighborhood, there's nothing, and it all runs downhill.
Yep.
And
But
then,
when your neighborhood was built, Larry, and when mine.
54, yeah.
Okay, when mine was built in 54, they really didn't need the stormwater management. You still had rain, you still had storms that were strong at times, but you didn't need it because, you know, there was other stuff, oops, sorry, hadn't been built up, you know, township hadn't developed. The needs have changed, again, for all sorts of different reasons, including more rain, but that's not the sole cause. But you didn't need it back then, right? So now, you know, we have to go back and figure out.
you see the landscapers in there, and they're all cutting the grass, and they're all blowing it out into the street. And then the rain comes and it goes down to the drain, and George has to go out there and.
George's crew comes by twice a year, or at least seems to me, and lifts up all those, I'm at sort of, the water runs all down Dunman to my property, and we have a creek that runs basically out to Darby Creek, or whatever you call that. But, you know, George's crew's out there all the time, pulling the crap out of it, you know.
I just cringe when I hear Larry say that the landscapers put the clippings in the road. It's like, please don't do that. It
Right.
destroys, it builds so much sediment and it destroys our system, and it's not good.
Well, and then the trees.
The leaf.
So if that's the one message, if everybody can just let all their neighbors know, stop cutting down trees.
Thank
They, you know, back to the landscapers, they all just want to drive their mower across the lawn. They don't want to go around a tree. And I understand people are concerned about trees falling on their house and things like that, but there's our EAC and Newtown and Bloom can give everybody native plants. You know, that's what we're trying to do, is educate people. Grass is an accelerant for water.
Yeah.
It just goes right past it and goes into the streams.
Now if we just get rid of the damn ash borers and lantern
I
flies.
know,
Right.
that's part of the problem as well. I
Yeah,
mean,
because
you
I'm
couldn't help it.
losing 10 trees on my lawn this year.
I know,
Yeah.
we couldn't help that, you know, but
Arbor
just,
Day.
yeah,
Join Arbor Day. You can buy trees cheap.
Oh, no, I'll replace it. No,
yeah.
I love the trees. It's just like they're
Yeah.
70, 80-foot high trees. That are gonna.
Yeah,
I know,
it's
they're
hard to
scary.
replace that.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you live in an old growth forest.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
hadn't thought about it before, but Tina's point is exactly right. For every tree you cut down is costing the township in a small way, which adds up. Like, we have to now spend money on stormwater management practices because sort of an accumulation of things over time. And so that's a good way to put it to people. It's like, you know, you cut down that tree, think about it hard because you're affecting that soil significantly.
Well, I'll give you an example. I don't belong to the golf club you referenced before, but another where I play, the thing has been to take down trees on golf courses, like, because there's been a lot of overpopulation and stuff like that. Well, what happened when you did that? Everybody says, oh, it's great, there's no leaves in the fall. No, look at what you do to the water flow on a golf course. This golf course is naturally sloped, right? That natural slope is now gone because those trees are gone. So now all of a sudden things are pooling everywhere on golf courses and elsewhere. And everything goes down Steel Road and play Atlanta. Everything goes down Steel Road. Steel Road looks like the Colorado River sometimes.
yeah.
Because it all feeds into one place. So if you're not careful, you know, it's like any other great intention.
Mhm.
It's a bad result.
Leads to me paying 10 grand last month to dredge my pond because of the silt that came down from the other side of Paper Mill and created a huge, you know, pile of
Yeah,
silt
sure,
in a
yeah.
pond, which then blocked the culvert, which then was causing water to spill over Paper Mill, you know, and so, you know, that's the consequence when
Yeah.
somebody cuts down trees up on a hill and doesn't think about it, or is just doing it to maybe expand the shooting range, they cause, you know, downstream issues. Not naming anything specific.
All right, okay. So, action on this document.
I think that if any suggestions for this document, we won't adopt it today based on some of the conversation we've had. I think we should go back and reword it and bring it back to you, and then we'll look at that on the
We'll cover
12th.
it off next time.
We'll look at it on the 10th when we meet. Alex, if you want to send over
I will.
your comments, that would be helpful. And anybody else, that would help us.
Any committee comment? And there's still no public. In that case, let's adjourn.
Okay.
See you guys.